Yo, hey guys, Bweeks here, back in the video. Gonna be talking about Slormancer a bit today. This is gonna be like an update video on the progression of my character and also like a build guide. So, we've been playing the Knight, we're level 40, and we have been doing a Mighty Swing build. So I'll basically just go through all the skills I'm using and talk about the core of the build. So the core of the build is the Mighty Swing, and I'm using the Sword of the Manabender. You don't have to use the primordial version. The other version also works just fine. Both these are good, but to quickly go over it, each level gives you mana regen. Each level skills in your primary and secondary deal additional damage equal to a percentage of their mana cost. As you level it up, that percentage goes up. You also have raw damage. Raw damage is equal to a percentage of your mana regen. So we're going to be stacking mana regen, we're going to be stacking skill cost, and then I'm going to try to stack some other things as well just to get that damage up. And then it also grants you an ancestral skill. The skill is called Manabender. Has a very short cooldown because it scales with your mana regeneration. But anyway, you have life regeneration for the next 8 seconds. So this is going to be up 100% of the time because the cooldown is just so low. And your life regeneration is equal to 42.30 of your mana regeneration, and that's equal to, I forgot the exact, it's equal to your maximum mana divided by your mana regen, but I don't even worry about maximum mana, I'm just going for mana regen. And then on the primordial version, we'll just look at only that one. You also get this primordial benediction while Manabender is active. Critical strikes from your primary and secondary skills create a mana detonation, dealing additional damage as elemental damage to enemies within a 1.13 yard radius. So we didn't have that before, and since we got the primordial version, I started just adding more crit into the build. So if you don't have that, that's fine. It also took around 42,000 victims for it to turn primordial, and then it goes back to level 1, so then you had to re-level it back up. So if you're wondering when it's going to do it, it seems to be somewhere around 42,000 victims. Anyway, so that's basically what we're scaling everything off of. I am using the Mighty Sweep, or Mighty Swing on my character. You could use really any skill, you just really want to scale this mana cost, because that mana cost is going to give you more base damage here. So what we're doing, I am doing the 15% chance to skewer. Just free damage, because the skewer can go up to 5 times and you get 10% additional damage. So any difficult enemies might get skewered and just take increased damage. And also is the one that gives you the highest mana cost, so it kind of has like a double benefit there. The crit one is okay, but it doesn't give you that mana. The mana is really what you need. If I go crit, then it drops it, and you can see the damage drops as well. Well, it doesn't update here, but the damage drops. Alright, in the next row, I'm taking the inner fire, so I have a chance to prog inner fire here. This is the only thing on the whole build that gives me inner fire. It also costs a lot of mana. If your gear has inner fire, you could do overdrive instead. My gear has overdrive chance, so I'm doing inner fire, and these other ones aren't really worth taking on this build, so just moving on. Early with the build, I was taking the peasant path, which gives you 40% increased damage, which sounds really nice if you're not wearing any legendary equipment. Eventually you're going to get legendaries. I'm currently not wearing any legendaries. And then later, when I started upgrading my gear, this one really took the cake. It's practice makes perfect, and it gives you 1% crit for each level of your mastery. So I have 12 mastery plus 22 from gear. Talk about how you get that a little later. But yeah, 34 crit chance for one node. Very good, and the last one does increase the mana cost, but it's the one where you have to charge it up. If you feel like charging up, go for it, but I prefer not to. So then in the next row, we have whenever it deals damage to an enemy, you gain a block stack. Just not really good DPS upgrade, so I'm taking the Mighty Swing. Has a plus 15% melee recast chance, and this one didn't even really acknowledge. It just gives you attack speed, which is nice, but you can get attack speed on gear, and at max rank you get what, 15 stacks of 3, so I mean it's pretty good, 45% attack speed, but I really just prefer the recast chance. It's also pretty good mana. Might try this one out sometime in the future, but even at max rank it's only 60 mana. So I think this is really going to be where the damage comes from. And lastly, I've switched between these two. This one is when the Mighty Swing is recasted, it's recasted twice, so you get 3 hits instead of just 2. But it ends up being less damage. One, because of the mana cost part of it. You go significantly down in mana cost, as you see it really drops your damage as well. And this one gives you 80% increased damage. So I went for the damage and this 280 mana cost. So in the end, it cost 507 mana per swing, but I have so much regen, it doesn't really matter. So if we actually look at our stats, On the character, I'm scaling mana regen, so I have 3,356 mana regen. A lot of that is from gear, and then all that is scaling our damage. As far as other skills, I'm using the Enduring Protector, just because I feel like it's the best for me. You could probably get away with the Haphazard Champion and maybe do some astral stuff. I've messed around with all of them. I didn't really like the banners as much, so I just went with the Protector because it just saves your life more often than not. So as far as these go, I'm not going to read all the extra ones, I'll just do the ones I picked. So I'm picking extra armor and percent armor. I'm picking deflect lasts 3 additional seconds. Deflect's cooldown is reduced by 5% for each enemy nullified. Also going with blocking triggers astral retribution. This row there really wasn't much that made any sense. It's like counterattack and thorns and retaliation, so I just went with the blocking triggers astral retribution. And then I'm also going whenever an enemy deals damage to you, he is skewered. So we have 2 ways to skewer enemies, just taking damage or actually hitting them. Oh, this is supposed to be enabled. Anyway, this one's supposed to be enabled. Whenever you block, you have a 100% chance to stun the enemy for the next 3 seconds. So just some extra little something. I didn't want to take this one because it reduced your movement speed, but you could take it if you were really struggling. Next, I did a 100% area damage reduction during deflect. So that means when you're deflecting, you will not only just nullify melee and projectiles, you'll also nullify the area damage, which means you're going to be completely immune when you have this up. So you definitely want your safety bubble, in my opinion, or some enemies are just going to get you. And then last, I'm doing the Elder Armor, so your chest stats are added twice. Basically gives you an extra free like gear slot. It doesn't apply anything else you put on your chest, like your Reaper stats and your Mastery stats, that kind of stuff, but it will give you all the stats that are on the item itself. Okay, so that's my main skill and my specialization. As far as the secondary skill goes, I'm using Grappling Hook. I've messed around with like every single one of these. The shield is okay, gives you some free like slows and free block just for having it on, but I felt like the Grappling Hook was best for clear speed. The Wood Stick is okay as well, especially if you can get the extra damage, because it will also be in your secondary slot. When its mana cost gets increased, it can do a lot more damage as well. So, could be something. You also could use the stick as like a primary skill instead. There's a lot of things you can mess around with. Even the Lance seemed good, because it just gets a lot of plus damage, and you can really pump out some crazy damage. Anyway, I ended up using Grappling Hook, and here's why. Grappling Hook has increased range, so I'll be able to increase the range, and then coupled with this one, that's going to pull all enemies towards you. You're going to have increased range, it's going to pull all the enemies. So what that looks like is this. It basically pulls the whole screen to you. If you're deflected, you're completely immune, and then you just, attack, and you're going to kill everything. So then the next one, we have whenever Grappling Hook hits an enemy, if it's a melee enemy, you get reduced melee damage. Same goes for projectile enemies, and then area enemies as well. So you can have 100 stacks, and they last up to 9 seconds, so oftentimes you'll have a lot of stacks of each, and you'll have a lot of extra defense just from that. I haven't unlocked these other rows quite yet, but when I do, I'm either going to go with Stun here, or I'm going to go with the Mighty Vitality. Most likely the Mighty Vitality. I guess I'll pick this up next level, and then level 8 I'll pick up this one. But in the end, it's going to give you 50% increased max life, which is just going to be huge defensively. We already have, what, 12k life, so it's going to be a nice little chunk of life. And then lastly, neither one of these really matter. This one definitely doesn't matter because I'm not using the Commander, but I'll be using this one here. The Head Slam is just some free extra damage, so I'll take it. Alright, so that's my actual skills. Ancestral Tree, we'll just like briefly talk about. There's a lot of options you can go with. I went with the double aura. This aura gives enemies around you minus 49.5% attack speed multiplier, so it really helps just not taking as much damage, and it locking mana doesn't matter at all. And then I take this aura as well, which costs 314 mana per second, but that doesn't really matter. We have way more mana regen than we can ever, spend. Anyway, and when it's toggled on, you have additional LA resist, and enemies within 2.26 yard radius are chilled, and chill does minus movement speed. So anyway, so that's that. You also could go with Raw damage, damage to elites, mana regen. That's probably best for like just straight DPS. I've messed around with the attack speed as well. I would do like these two together. Get the attack speed, armor pin, and LE penetration. I've also messed around with this burning shadow that gives you critical strike damage. Also good for DPS. I think that's about it, but you could pick like this one and this one too. I've even tried this one here, which does give you damage. It doubles the cost of your skill and makes it go up to 1,000, but it was less damage than going with these over here, or less utilities going with these over here. But feel free to try whatever, but these are the two I picked. Okay, and then actually talking about gear. So you need a lot of mana regen. I'll go over my like actual stats I'm going for first. Well, I guess we'll look at the gear. Anyway, so shoulders, I'm doing armor and LE resist. You just really need some defense, and you can't really get life on these items, or some of the items. I'm going for melee recast chance because I really want to proc additional attacks. I'm going for max life where I can get it, and I just happen to get critical strike chances epic stat. I'll most likely reroll that at some point. And then of course I have +5 to Corey's Reapers, +2 to Mighty Swing, and +3 to Toughness. I'll talk about the attributes after this, but basically all the gear is going to have +5 to Corey and +2 to Mighty Swing. That's how I'm getting that plus 22 on the Mighty Swing, because you have 11 pieces of gear, and that's how I'm getting plus 55 primordial levels, because this is a primordial sword by Corey. You can see that at the top. So you want to basically match up whatever Reaper you're using with the plus levels of whoever's Reaper that is. So anyway, that's the first item. Second item, doing armor and attack speed. Attack speed just to attack faster basically, because it's just a more damage output. Then I'm also using melee recast chance, more attack speed, life regen, overdrive chance. I'll probably switch one of those at some point, most likely the life regen. It's good to have overdrive chance, and I have the inner fire chance from my actual Mighty Swing. Then since I'm scaling crit, I'm looking for crit damage. So this has armor, crit damage, also have area of effect. It just ended up rolling it. I might roll it away, but extra area does help. Ancestral strike damage is worthless for me. Critical strike is good. Max mana is worthless, so I need to reroll those. Most of my epic stats are kind of garbage right now. I just haven't had the money to reroll and be picky about that yet. My ring is mana regen, percent mana regen, elite damage reduction, attack speed, and life regen. I just happened to get these epic stats. As far as my helm goes, mana regen, life, mana regen, elite damage reduction, damage to elites, life leech. You want life leech either on your helm or your is it gloves just as a stat there. I ended up going for the critical strike here because it just happened to find this item with life leech as an epic stat. So that's basically how I'm sustaining if I get hit in combat or whatever. Then we also have my amulet, triple mana regen, damage to elites, mana leech, raw damage. You don't need the mana leech, you have enough regen. That doesn't matter. This is just how it dropped. Alright, then we also have chest. This is the item that's getting doubled. So we have double the stats. It's going to be these top stats. So we have double the elemental resist percentage. We have double that max life again. Double that mana regen. And then we have double these epic stats, which are just damage to elites. I'll reroll the inner fire damage and the projectile damage reduction at some point, but it's good for now. My cloak, or my cape, is triple mana regen as well, critical strike chance, life on kill, which doesn't matter, and projectile speed, which doesn't matter. I'll change those out at some point. Belt, critical strike damage, elite damage reduction, armor, aura, increased effect, and then melee damage reduction. All those things are fine, but I'll probably try to reroll some of them. And then lastly, we have my ring, which is triple mana regen as well. So my gear is a mixture of determination and toughness as far as the attributes go. When we look at my actual attributes, I am using toughness to at least get this here, this 15 greater trait, which gives you elemental resist equal to 25% of your armor. So I'm scaling armor so much. If we look at it, I have 4.6k armor and I'm getting 4.3k elemental resist. So from the current ones I have here, I'm getting 500-ish armor, 600-ish max life, 25% armor, and I'm also getting 1,157 elemental resist just from the armor. And then down here, I'm also doing determination. So I'm getting plus 900 elemental resist, plus 500 mana regen, which gives me damage, plus 23 max life, plus 17 elite damage reduction. Then whenever I deal critical strike damage, I have life on hit for each point after the after this one in this trait. So it ends up being 61. Anyway, then the next one we have plus 20 damage to elites for every elite within a 10-yard radius. And then finally we have whenever you dealt damage, you have plus 3% all damage reduction for the next 10 seconds. This effect stacks up to 10 times, so it's 30% reduced damage if I've been hit, 10 times recently. Alright, so that's kind of what I'm doing with the attributes. We'll just talk about like an overview of all the stats, what I'm going for. So max life, I want to get this number up, and I will at some point. You want a little bit of life leech, you want as much mana regen as you can stand without sacrificing your defense too much. I haven't really scaled movement speed. Attack speed I have a little bit. Haven't tried too hard to get attack speed. Could get more. Critical strike chance, I have 19 here, but in the actual tree, or the skill for my Mighty Swing, it's an additional plus 34, so it ends up being 53% critical strike chance, and then critical strike damage, I need to get this higher, just to deal a lot more damage. So at 281, but we'll try to fix it. 15% armor pin, damage to elites, I have 37.5. We already talked about armor and resist. I have a little bit of shadow resist, but I don't actually know if there's any shadow damage in the game right now. Elite damage reduction, I have 71.5% elite damage reduction, a little bit of melee reduction, a little bit of projectile reduction, all that fun stuff. As far as melee goes, I have the inner fire chance on my actual Mighty Swing. I have overdrive chance through my gear. Melee recast chance is 38% here, but the Mighty Swing also gives me another 15, so that puts me at another 53%. So half the time I'm like critting, the other half of the time I'm double casting my ability. I think that is everything with the gearing and everything. Alright, that's gonna be basically everything. There might be like a part 2 to this video at some point, just talking about how I optimize the build more. But this is currently where I'm at. Eventually I'll add more crit. I'll sacrifice some mana regen to add more life. Try to get more crit bonus, try to get my melee recast higher, get all those epic stats, eventually add on legendary stats. But until then, this is what I've been doing to farm Wrath 10, and it feels very safe, very tanky, with lots of damage. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions or comments about the build. Maybe there's some things that you can help me out with optimization. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll have more Slormancer and other content coming for you. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.